London and Brussels agreed on a Brexit deal. It was not Prime Minister Boris Johnson's fault that it took so long. Well, finally. The Brexit shock at the turn of the year has been averted. Shortly before the Brexit transition period ends, just in time for Christmas, Great Britain and the European Union agreed at the last minute on a comprehensive agreement, primarily on trade issues. Also in the future, zero tariffs, zero quotas, no standard dumpings, good prerequisites for further extensive economic relations. Anything else would have been irresponsible, especially now. Great Britain and the EU will have to struggle with the consequences of the corona crisis for a long time. To risk trade chaos as well would have bordered on political insanity. Not only because of the direct economic damage worth billions of euros that had hard Brexit with tariffs on practically all goods would have caused in the new year, political relations between Great Britain and the continent would also have been poisoned for years. It is more than unsettling that Brussels and London nevertheless stumbled towards the abyss for months and only turned at the last moment. Putting the blame on British Prime Minister Boris Johnson alone is popular in the EU, but it distorts the facts. Sure, Johnson played with the failure of the negotiations. He could have blamed the negative consequences on the corona crisis. He shied away from admitting to voters that the Brexit campaign was based on a misunderstanding. You can no longer have full access to the attractive EU internal market without recognizing EU standards. Johnson repeatedly deliberately provoked the continental Europeans in the negotiations. He threatened to break previous promises on the Northern Ireland question. He wanted to appear unpredictable and impress his voters with threatening gestures towards Brussels. But he exaggerated this tactic so much that in the end he could no longer be trusted. The pure poison for any agreement, which made it difficult to reach an agreement. But the EU also played its part in the long blockade. As a large bloc, it believed that it was in a better negotiating position. Of course it was, and coolly refused the British many of the concessions that Canada, for example, made in the much celebrated CETA agreement. The negotiating strategy was also shaped by the urge to show the British the right way now. It's more beautiful inside than outside. That should be the lesson for the apostate kingdom. Sure, the Union had to defend important principles of its internal market. Brussels could not allow such a weighty trading partner to have free access to the market on its doorstep, but it could use standards dumping to give its companies an unfair competitive advantage. But that does not explain why the EU refused to grant concessions on fishing rights in British waters until shortly before closing time. The fish question is completely insignificant for the EU, but for Johnson it was an important symbol of new sovereignty. It was necessary for Brussels to give in, but the EU negotiators believed that they could keep the front line of the EU member states closed only by taking a tough stance on such secondary issues. The fact that the British would play off the EU states with their different interests against each other was the primary fear of the Brussels negotiators. That is why the Union moved too hesitantly. The compromises that the EU did in the end are manageable. The fact that the agreement came about because of the worsening corona crisis, especially in Great Britain, would have brought the consequences of a chaos Brexit to the fore, is a misunderstanding. No negotiator could come out of a contract that will now regulate relations for many years and let such impressions guide. Instead, the continental Europeans can send a big thank you to Washington. The fact that Johnson urgently wanted a contract in the end, even if he covered it with his usual theatrical thunder, has a lot to do with the disappointing outcome of the US presidential elections for him. Instead of the Brexit admirer and EU enemy Donald Trump, the Brexit skeptic and EU friend Joe Biden will soon be sitting in the White House. Biden, who is descendant from Irish immigrants, has threatened Johnson several times that there will be no trade deal with the US if a hard Brexit threatens peace on the island of Ireland. So the special relationship with Washington was also in question. This has arguably prevented the British Prime Minister from risking the hard Brexit. Without a Brexit agreement, Johnson and his government would now be pretty much alone in a troubled world. Nevertheless, it will be difficult for the United Kingdom on its special path. And the EU should have no illusions either. Not only is trade with a third country, Great Britain, now becoming more complicated despite the contract. Even if both sides invoke their newly established partnership, conflicts are foreseeable. Relationships are likely to remain troubled. And if you want to stay informed about what's going to happen in the future, please subscribe to my channel and my other channels. I'll see you in my next video. Bis gleich.